Hey, everybody. It is the Saturday Spotlight, and excited to bring on our friend from Locked on Auburn and the Auburn Sports Network, Zach Blackerby, to talk a little Auburn. We're going to talk some SEC as well, and he's got a prediction in the SEC West that may surprise some people. Make sure you stick around for that. Zach does a great job. But first, I do got to give a shout out to betonline.ag. You need to head over there today, whether it's Major League Baseball, NBA. They've got a 50% sign-up bonus. If you go over there now, you got to go over there quickly and sign up. They're going to play the Sharps. They've got game props, team props, parlays, teasers, pleasers, anything under the sun, soccer, Euro Cup, all that stuff. You can bet it there. And like I said, they're going to play the Sharps, and the sign-up bonuses are outstanding. That is betonline.ag. Head over there today and tell them that Jboy sent you. My monologue is basically going to talk about season 1 expectations for Brian Harsin. There's been a lot of people saying, this is acceptable. This record's not acceptable. This is what it should be. This is what it shouldn't be. And what I will say is this. Number one, you want to win every game that you play, every game that you coach, you participate in. I had Shane Beamer on here. He's telling his guys the same thing. Listen, this year one isn't a wash. But just from an outside perspective, from an outside the locker room, outside the facility, what's being said to the players, from an outside perspective, this year, the schedule, as usual, for Auburn is one of the hardest in the country. And the personnel is not what Brian Harsin will have in 2 or 3 years. It all doesn't fit his system. They're all not guys that he's recruited, but that doesn't mean you can't win games. And when you look at this schedule, you look at Akron, look at the first 2 games, should be cupcakes. You got to play every game. You never know. From Appalachian State, Michigan, we've seen crazy upsets in college football. You got to get through those 2. But Penn State week 3 is the table setter. And you talk about momentum and early momentum for a new staff. And you can say, struggled in recruiting, this, that, and the other. I'm leaving all that to the side right now because circumstances dictate outcomes. But if they can go to Happy Valley in what is probably going to be a whiteout in a full capacity stadium in one of the most rocking, you can ask David Cohn, a quarterback at Michigan, he'll tell you one of the most rocking atmospheres in college football there in Happy Valley, and you're able to go get a win, that not only gives the fan base confidence and doesn't take pressure off Brian Harsin, but makes it easier. It gives the team confidence. Regardless of what Penn State's record was last year, we know the brand they are in the Big Ten. That lets you kind of feel, even though it may not make 100% sense to everybody outside that building, that the page is being turned. And just like life, football is a game of momentum and angles. And if you look at that angle and that momentum that you could take going into a Georgia State game that you should win, and now all of a sudden you're 4-0 going to LSU, a place that Auburn hasn't played great at. Now, you got a new coaching staff and this, that, and the other, but history tells you not a lot of people play great down there in Death Valley. But when you look at that matchup, if LSU, with all the turmoil outside, doesn't start out hot, and look, I got them finishing second in the West right now. I think they do better as an outsider. I think they're going to bounce back. But if it gets ugly early and it starts to snowball, and Auburn is 4-0 going into Baton Rouge down there in Death Valley and confident enough to win it, they're going to have a chance. And if they were to pull that one off, they got Georgia coming home the next week. Like me and Zach Blackerby are going to talk about, the gap is a mile wide from a roster standpoint, especially up front. But it gives you confidence, and it helps you play better, and it helps you practice better, and it helps you recruit better, and all these things. But if Auburn could get out of those first 6 games, really, 4-2, you'd feel good about, but possibly 5-1, now you're cooking with grease. But here's the problem. Ole Miss is not a cakewalk. Arkansas is not a cakewalk. Mississippi State is scary with Mike Leach. Gone are the days where you can assume that you're going to beat Kentucky or that you're going to run through Ole Miss or this, that, and the other. You are going to have to earn every single win that you have in the season, especially being in the SEC West. And since it's a game of momentum, that week 3 game at Penn State, not that it's make or break, it's year 1. But you want to talk about a table setter. Because if Auburn goes 8-4 or better, there ought to be parties in the streets. And you'll have some people say, oh, well, we national championship or bust, this, that, and the other. You got to live in reality. Not that Auburn can't win the national championship, or not that you shouldn't want for your team to win the national championship. I understand that. I understand the standard. I understand when you're paying these guys this much money, when you've got this much riding on it, when the city depends on it, when your ability to look at your neighbor and talk trash for 364 days depends on it. But the reality is the reality. And with Auburn's roster right now, 8-4 and above is masterful. 7-5 is okay. Think anything 6-6 or less, even with this roster, would be a disappointment. So when you go through the schedule and you look at it realistically, keep those things in your mind. You want to strive for the stars, but there's nothing wrong with landing on the moon every once in a while. That's my monologue for today. Let's get to Zach Blackerby from Locked On Auburn. Let's win the water cooler.